Welcome to Jim Sells the Suncoast, your go-to podcast for all things real estate on Florida's beautiful Suncoast. I'm your host, Jim, your friendly neighborhood real estate agent, and each week we dive into the vibrant world of buying and selling homes while embracing the laid-back lifestyle that makes Florida such a paradise. In our episodes, we'll explore the latest developments shaping our communities and spotlight the incredible companies and industries that play a vital role in real estate, from movers to mortgage brokers, title agents to insurance pros. Whether you're a first-time buyer, a seasoned seller, or simply dreaming of that perfect beachside bungalow, we've got insights, tips, and plenty of local flavor to guide you. So grab your sunscreen and get ready to soak up knowledge, laughs, and a little sunshine as we navigate the Suncoast together. Let's make your real estate dreams a reality, one episode at a time. Hi, and welcome to Jim Sells the Suncoast. Today, I am honored to have Rich Carroll with me. He is with HomeTeam Inspections. He's been doing this since 2019, and he has Sarasota, Manatee, Venice, really the whole Suncoast area. So welcome, Rich.
Thank you.
So glad you're here. Anybody that's bought a home knows one of the things they do is you have to get an inspection. You want to know what's going on, what you have in your home. What are the most common issues that you encounter during an inspection on the Suncoast?
Probably the thing that I feel like is the most important is looking at the roof. So the roof, it's your most important, expensive component of your house. And it's very important to your insurance company. It's the one that they're focused on. And it's the place where not only is it expensive, but if it does fail on you, you end up with some pretty expensive repairs after. So the roof's probably the biggest thing, trying to get a good look at the roof and let people know how long they have within reason. We've had 3 hurricanes in the last couple of years that even the best home inspector goes out and says, 10 years, 3 hurricanes hit, 2 years. It's hard on them. But the idea of trying to understand the age and complexity of your home, that's probably the biggest thing is the roof. After that, plumbing. One of the things that we have down here is we have a lot of older homes with cast iron pipes. So letting people understand how their plumbing works, that's very important. I'm asked almost every day, who do you suggest for HVAC systems and stuff like that too? Because you're talking, if you have a single system, it's 10 grand. If you have a double system, it's 20. And you can just count the number of condensers you have and multiply it by $8,000 to $10,000. Those are expensive. So people want to know about that too.
All right. How do coastal conditions like humidity and salt water, how do they impact the longevity of the home?
So everybody's seen like the rust, or in some cases, it's corrosion. Older houses in a lot of our neighborhoods were built around 2000, give or take. And if you start looking at all the corners, back when they were doing stucco on those corners, you had metal corners and they would stucco up to that metal corner and paint over it. So when you go out and you look at a house and the corner's starting to rust and you got rust bleeding through, that's the corrosion from that salt air and moisture getting in there and really working on that metal there.
My editor's great. We're going to look like we were brilliant and see
Anyway, where was I going? So the
metal corners, stucco.
Yeah, the metal corners, you're going to see a lot of corrosion there, and there'll be like little rust lines and stuff there, especially if you get out close to the water. A condenser, an air conditioning condenser that's 5-6 years old is going to have some pretty significant rust on it just because that salt air is just so hard on the metal, and it's going to attack anything metal. Closer to water, the more that you're going to have to keep things painted and coated up real good so that they don't rust. Condensers, I've seen that were 7 years old looking like they were 30 years old. The other thing is electrical panels and stuff that are outside. So anything like that, any metal conduit, any electrical panels, those things will rust through, rust out, and then they'll start giving you problems because once you get moisture and electricity, you don't have to be a master electrician to know that isn't a good combination.
What's the biggest red flag you look for when you're inspecting a home out here on the Suncoast?
Okay, moisture more than anything else. One of the things we love, we got the ocean, love the water. We got some great rivers. If you own a kayak, it's a wonderful place to live. Even the rainy days are cool. I'm from the West Coast, so we're used to drizzle 9 months out of the year. Whereas here, I mean, it rains, it's done. Go back outside, it's cool. But that's probably the biggest red flag is you want to make sure the water is staying where it's supposed to. Water inside the house, any kind of moisture whatsoever is going to be destructive. So the first thing that we'll do is, in fact, everybody that I train walks through the house, first thing we do is we start looking at the ceiling for water stains and watermarks. Same thing with walls. Any kind of large deterioration on a wall, probably some kind of a water staining. And then if we find anything, first thing we do is throw a moisture meter on. Just make sure there's no water there, because even if it's not a roof leak, even if it's not a leak through a wall or a slab like that, there's a lot of times when you end up with leaks in pipes inside lines. I had one about a month ago that, man, I couldn't find the leak, but after a while it's just like, wait a minute, do you hear it? And you can hear this, and it's a steady drip inside a wall. You can hear it, but we couldn't see it until we got down along the baseboard, where behind the baseboard it was clearly leaking. Moisture is the biggest thing. Any kind of discoloration that makes you think moisture, makes you question marks, and that's what you got to start looking for.
When you see moisture inside, if you've got that moisture buildup on there,
usually it takes a minute for it to happen, even with a roof leak, unless you have just boom, you have a lot of wind, catastrophic failure of the roof, you lose a chunk and it starts raining inside. Most of the time you'll start with a little dribble and you'll get a little moisture. I've had several times where the owner said, I had no idea this was going on. And you look at them and you say, I believe you. Because the thing is, a lot of us, if you have a bigger house, you may not go into every room every day all the time. And then when you do go in there, I'm like the worst house guest to have. Don't ever invite a home inspector over for dinner, because the first thing they're doing is number right here. They're looking at your ceiling. They're looking for anything that could be a defect in the home inspection. But that's the thing, is people aren't attuned to necessarily seeing stains. That's probably a roof leak, and likely as not, it could be as simple as just a nail rusted out, or a nail got loose and then it starts dripping through, and that's that. The other one is plumbing leaks, and a lot of times you have drain line leaks, and if it's a drain line leak, you may not notice a drain line leak because it only leaks when there's water in there. So underneath everybody's sink is full of stuff, and you may be a week, 2 weeks, a month into something before you go, oh, everything I own is wet under here. What's going on? And by that time, since the cabinets some are nice, but a lot of the components for the cabinets are made out of particle board, and that does not hold the water very well. So the first day, it's fine. Just wipe it off. Even the third day is probably fine. Just wipe it off. After that, it's starting to get into the wood itself and break that out and cause all kinds of grief. So water usually, my experience is, it takes a little bit of time to really cause some damage, because either we don't recognize it because we don't see it, or once we do recognize it, we want to wait and see for a day or two to make sure that we know what's going on. And then sometimes it's hard to get it fixed.
Yeah. So I think that says something when the inspector comes through and says, there may be damage up there, it's moist, follow up on it.
Yeah. I always tell people too, and this was something that I learned from running factories, was if you have a spot where it leaked, I guarantee you that is probably your next likely spot to look for leaks too. So problems tend to happen in the same spot.
How do you assess the quality and condition of a roof overall? And what on the roof are you looking at? You're looking at the top, you're looking inside, up in the attic. What are any specific things you're looking for?
The first thing when we first start out is we'll take a walk around the house. We're looking at the gutters themselves and the soffit and the fascia to see what kind of condition those are in. With a lot of wind lately, we've seen a lot of soffits that are either missing or just damaged and bent up shape. Gutters, of course, we keep an eye on. You want to look for any gutters that look like they might be bleeding water back into the house, so that can be an issue too. Then typically what I will do under normal circumstances, I'll go up and walk on the roof and take a look at the roof itself. I'm looking for broken tiles, cracked tiles, missing tiles. If it's not a tile roof, then I'll be looking at shingles. And again, it's the same thing. It's missing shingles. It's torn shingles. It's any place where the shingles are lifted. We get a lot of wind. So a lot of times you can touch those shingles. And if it comes up in your hand and you can get your fingers under it, that's bad. So we're looking for anything that's lifted. And then anything that looks like it could be a hole or should be a hole, if there's any kind of places where it's worn out. After that, we start looking for a thing called granular loss. And that's on your shingles. There's a sand up there. And the way the shingle works is it's an asphalt and fiberglass shingle. Once the sand goes away, the ultraviolet light starts working on that fiberglass and that asphalt, and it stops shedding water like it's supposed to. And the longevity of the roof, the amount of time it's going to last, is directly related to how much of that sand you still have on those shingles. And so we're looking at that, trying to assess that, and then just generally give an age of the roof, of how old is it, how much longer will it last, give people kind of an idea of what they're looking
Right.
at. When a roof's $40,000 plus, you want to know when that bill
Right.
collector is coming.
Yeah. And you want to get as much use out of it as you can.
And that's what I tell people too. In a lot of cases, the roof, whether you're going to just do a repair or replace a roof, once the repair costs X, then it's better to just replace it. And then finally, what we'll do is we'll go in the attic and we'll look for leaks in the attic. In most cases, if you see a leak, you're not going to see it on top of the roof. You can see missing shingles, you can see something, but leaks and stuff start out being easier to see in the attic. If you think about it, a nail is how wide? And so if you have a nail hole in the top of a roof, it's going to be pretty darn hard to see that little tiny hole. But
Right.
on the inside of the attic, the water goes in and then it spreads and it makes a big wet stain there. Really having people that go through your attic and take a good look there, that's probably the best way to find any kind of a problem that's already there.
Okay.
If your house does not have access to the attic, or if you don't have access in all the places, you may want to think about, where could I put a scuttle, which is just the porthole that you go up into the attic. Where is a good, safe place to put one of those? That's one of the maintenance points of your house. You're going to want to have somebody go look at it once in a while.
Don't wait 20 years to find a problem.
To where the ceiling's falling down and now the entire bedroom ceiling is now your.
Right. Yep. How do you inspect a home's foundation?
Yeah, and the inspection is very similar. We're looking for any kind of moisture. Most of the time for the slabs, we're looking for anything that could be loose, cracked tiles inside your house, any big cracks in there. Those are signs that there's a problem with it. We also, as we're walking around the outside of it, we want to see how your gutters are working. Are they dropping water right at the edge of the slab? Because if it's undermining, we're going to tell you, put some dirt back in there, get that pushed back up there and fix the grade so that we can push that water further away from the house. You don't want to make the pressure of the house against the slab itself. You want to get the ground, the dirt, the slab, all to be one continuous load bearing device to spread that weight out. The other thing you got to watch out for is just settling cracks, because there's always going to be some of those. So you want to watch out for any kind of settling cracks, anything that looks like it's clearly a crack there. And then finally, the last thing you're looking for is any moisture at the baseboards or at the base of the floor. If you see staining, things like that. I'll be honest with you, I find more roof problems than slab problems for sure. But every once in a while, you go out there and you'll find somebody that's got four corners of their house that down by the slab that's chipped out or broke up, or cracked, and that needs a little bit of attention. You have somebody, a contractor that's experienced with fixing those structural problems out there, and have them actually fix it, not just don't just stucco over it. You need to actually support it.
Are there any specific building materials or construction styles that are more prone to problems in this area?
I suppose I would start out wood frame versus block. Wood frame houses are always going to be more susceptible because they're made out of termite food. That's something that you want to be prepared for. So if you have a house that's predominantly wood, they have several here that have been here since the 20s. So it's not that they won't exist. And I've been up in Tampa too, and they have some that are before the 20s that have been around, and entire neighborhoods that are all wood. It's not that you can't have a wood house, you just need to protect it from the termites. And that means regular treatments and checking it and things like that. So that would probably be my first, if you're going to look at what you would watch out for. After that, I'd be concerned if you're very close to water or the coast, if you don't have your house set up for impact protection. And then as time goes on, I think what we're going to see is those houses on the coast too have to be lifted up and raised up higher, because those storm surges were devastating. I've been in several houses that have taken 1 to 4 feet of water, and it's almost a start over point at the house. They gut them and start just repairing them all the way from scratch. And I think
Mhm.
that what you're going to see is a lot of that particular style of building where you have mobile homes and you have houses that are sitting, the Florida style house with the low slope roof, really
Right.
squatty down there next to the water. I think that's going to go away. So those are the two things I would say right off the bat that you're going to see less and less of. And then after that, the interesting thing I think is that you're going to see the insurance companies push around and tend to define what we will and won't have for buildings here. It's what you can afford to, and some of that is based on science and some of it's based a little bit on emotion. It feels, and there's going to be some give and take there for sure too. So the insurance companies are going to start picking what can be where and how you can do it, because we just won't be able to afford to insure something. And for most of us that can't show up with
Mhm.
$500,000 of cash, you're going to have insurance because you're going to have a mortgage. There are a couple of things that are probably happening in the industry that are a little bit, I'm not saying good or bad one way or the other, but the building practices are faster than they ever were. Planned redundancy or the planned obsolescence is happening a little bit more. Some of the components that we use in our houses used to last a very long time, and they just flat don't last as long anymore. Be prepared once their AC units hit 10 years, once their water heaters hits 10 years, you need to be prepared. Honestly, I had one that was 27 years old in Oregon before I changed it out. It used to be very common is to have those things last a lifetime. They're just not anymore. And so I would say those are things that you have to be planning and preparing for. You need to look at what makes the most sense. I've said to people for a long time, if the insurance companies only give you 20 years on your shingle roof, do you really want a 35-year shingle, a 20-year shingle, or
Mhm.
a 50-year shingle? There's a trade-off there, and you got to figure out what makes the most sense. And that's a personal choice, I think,
Right.
at this point still.
Gonna be in the mix of what you're considering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it comes down to a math test. If I spend this much money and I buy this thing, is it really better? And you have to do your research.
All
I
right. So when
like
you're
older style stuff too, personally. Some of these places with the older style homes, I think they're cool looking. They give you that flavor of Florida. So I hate to see everything change and turn into something else. But that's part of life, right?
how do you evaluate the plumbing and electrical systems in a home?
There are several of them that are flagged by insurance companies. They don't like them. They're for various reasons. Usually, and it sounds like I'm saying the insurance people are bad guys, and they're not. What it is, they're worse than bad guys. They understand math. That's
Right.
that's why they're bad people, is they get math. It makes sense to them. If you have so many of X and less than 1% of them start fires, that's a good one. But if you have so many of
Mhm.
Y and 22% of them start fires, they don't want you to use those anymore. They're doing us a favor in reality, right? So if you have a Federal Pacific panel, if you have a Stab Lock panel, if you have a GTE Sylvania panel, those are flagged. Those are all flagged. Challenger is flagged now too. These are all flagged because they have a higher incidence of failure. So what do? We go into a house, we look to see what kind of a panel you have. We'll take a look at it. We'll open it up, see how it's wired. The world does not love solid strand aluminum wire. It is notorious for, again, starting fires and not being as safe as regular copper wire. So people want copper. That being said, there are ways to remediate that aluminum too, but again, it's not as well liked as the other. So we're going to look for copper, aluminum, solid strand, or multi-strand. Then once we get done with that, we're going to check all your outlets and make sure all the lights go on and the fans go on. So basically make sure any electrical appliance is functioning. Mind your inspector is looking for functioning. That doesn't mean if it's ugly, that's not our job. Yeah, but what do you think about how it looks? I said, you know what, to be honest with you, if you want me to decorate your house, you better get used to wagon wheels and steer horns, because that's what I like. And at that point, nobody cares about my opinion on aesthetics and how it looks. But
Yeah.
in your inspector, that's what his job is. Does it or does it not function? And if it functions, it's doing its part. We're going to look for any place where there's any kind of fire hazards. Are there exposed wires somewhere? Do you have the right kind of covers on your exterior outlets? Lights work. Do they function like they're supposed to? That's really our goal there, is to make sure that the electrical system is working and functional. We're going to make sure everything's grounded. We're going to make sure it's wired correctly to the extent that we look at it, which is to say outlets and fans. Now,
Right.
we're not going to take things apart. That's one thing that your home inspector shouldn't do. We're allowed to observe, but if you want somebody to go into the wall and take apart the electrical system or open up inspection and conduit and stuff like that, you need to get an electrician to do that. Our job is to say, hey, here's something that you need to get an electrician to take a look at because it does not
Right.
look good to us.
We expected to do X and it did Y.
Same thing with plumbing, exact same thing. If we go and we look at it and say, that is not hooked up how we would normally see it, we think you should have a plumber look at it to make sure that's going to continue working for you. That's one of the other things. People that are doing houses, if you're building a house, they have certain milestones they're looking for. And a week before the house is ready to close, you walk people through, and that's a milestone. Then the house closes, that's a milestone. Then they hit 12 months, and that's another milestone. Once the house closes, it goes from the building manager to the warranty side. And then once it's a year old, then the warranty's
Right.
gone on almost everything. Our look at it's a little bit different. We look at, is it functioning, and how long and how is it functioning? So if we look at a new build, is that going to work for the next 5 years, or is that going to fail 3 years down the road? There's a different perspective too at the way people look at things, and I think that's important too.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you're alluding to is, did it work in the manner it's supposed to work?
Yeah, and that's where it comes down to, right? Does it work in the manner that it was intended? And that sometimes is an absolute firm yes, and other times it's not so much. And maybe you look at it and just say, you know what, I don't care if the light and the fan come on every time you hit the button. What's important to me is that the light comes on, and as long as that's working, don't care. And that's where your
Right.
inspection is yours too. You can do.
Do you do anything with the overall energy efficiency of a home when you're doing an inspection?
I do not, but there are several people out there that do efficiency
Okay.
type of inspections. It's a different animal. I would say not as popular here as other places. I know in California, when I was there, they had people that's all they focused on was just the efficiency and the carbon footprint of your house,
Right.
how to minimize that. I don't really do that, but I know that you can find people that will.
How can homeowners prepare for a home inspection so that it's a smooth process?
So there's a handful of things that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to be able to get to the majority of the stuff in your house.
Right.
Where in some cases you're told declutter the house. And so you take everything out of the house and you put it in the garage, but you stack it all on the water heater and against the electrical panel. First off, we're going to want to go up in the attic, because if we do a wind mitt or just a regular home inspection, we need to be able to get in the attic. And don't take this the wrong way. I'm pretty good about getting into weird spots, but I am not going to crawl into an attic if I have to crawl over your $240,000 Corvette. It's just not going to happen. And I'm telling you, it hurts a lot worse to fall out of an attic and land on a $240,000 car than it does on a Pinto. So we're going to not crawl over those. To be fair, the point I'm trying to make is we need access to stuff. For your 4-point, we have to be able to get to your water heater. We have to get to the air handler and the condenser. We have to be able to get to all the plumbing. We're able to get to the electrical panel, and we're going to have to be able to get there enough that we can take the cover of it off. I had a house today with a stacked washer and dryer, and it's right up against an electrical panel, and it's all hooked up to water. And I just had to say, I got to be able to get into there. And I don't move washer and dryer because those hoses are notorious for breaking. And after talking with the realtor, she just said, the listing agent's coming over. I'll talk to him about it and see what we can do. And I thought, as long as we all know and we're all going to do this together, I'm happy to help. What I'm saying is, I just don't want to be responsible for a broken water line that I can't really do anything about. So needless to say, before I even got a chance to go in there and talk to him, he goes, oh, not a problem. I'll move it out of the way. He moves it out of the way. And then the guy that was with me, we always go out in teams. We go out 2 at a time at least. So broke the hose. And so they had to run in there really quick and do the quick shut down the water as fast as you can on this house. And so it's just one of those things, right? There's things that are just notorious that we have to get to. So electrical panel, you have to be able to get to and take the cover off. You need to be able to get in the attics. That's the first thing. The first thing you can do to make it a smooth process is make sure that we can get to everything we need to. The next thing I would say is make sure that some of the stuff if you have something that's really weird and it's hard to figure out how to work, if the refrigerator work, you have to crawl up on a ladder and crank a handle up in the attic and then stand on one foot and spin around.
Yeah.
Make sure that stuff is very easy for us to figure out, because if it's really difficult for us to figure out how to make something work, we're just going to say does not function. Recommend you talk to the owner about how to make it work. Where did we hide the switch to the pool light? Where did we
Yeah.
hide the switch to the blower to the spa? I had one the other day. It was hilarious. There's not a switch over in the pool stuff. There's not a switch on the one. One of the bathrooms had a light switch in it. And it just so happened that when the person that was working with me was testing all the switches in the bathroom, they go, "What is this doing?" I'm like, "The blower went on. How did that happen?" And so
Yeah.
you got to go back in and find who touched what. And so if you have stuff like that, make it as simple as possible, because otherwise you end up with this, it doesn't work. Because there's a limit to how long we're going to look for a switch that's somewhere. I one time went up and there's a GFCI reset above the kitchen in the attic. Again, we flagged that and said, listen, you need to take that out of there, because a GFCI that says you have to go up in the attic to reset your hood fan for your oven, that's
Right.
a bad place for it. But if you have something like that, let us know ahead of time, because otherwise you're going to get home and that hood fan's not going to work for 3 weeks, and then it's going to dawn on you, oh, that's where that is. The other thing I would say too is we're not going to move furniture or appliances. So if there's something that clearly you need to be able to get to, have a clear path to it. And we open all the windows. If one of my guys was to stand with his boots, even with booties on top of your couch to open a window, I'd have to choke them out. That's just, they know
Right.
it. I know it. It's just how it goes down. That's just not cool. Access to stuff, that's going to be the most important thing. Anything that's really odd, I would leave instructions on how things work. I certainly wouldn't try to hide anything, because if you hide stuff, then it looks like you're trying to do something dishonest. And so then you end up with something in the inspection report that says, I accidentally had to move this cabinet so that I could show you this giant hole in the wall.
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't mean to. Maybe it wasn't being tricky, but it certainly does,
Sure.
twist
And that
right there.
plants that seed.
Yeah. And doesn't it work best when we all are honest and upfront and just say, hey, this is a condition of the house? Fixing the roof and making sure there's no leaks should include making sure that you've painted the ceilings and all that. Disclose it like you're supposed to. One of the things that I see that plants more concern in our clients' mind is when they go into a house and they see stains on the ceiling. They don't like that. And they're like, oh man, the roof probably leaks. They replaced it a year and a half ago. It probably doesn't. They just haven't painted the ceilings. I would think about that. You have a realtor, take their advice. They're going to tell you not to leave a problem where it's obvious and where there's going to be a question
Yeah.
from. So to sum that one up, attic access, electrical panel access, AC access, and water heater access. Those are going to be real important. Then access to anything inside the house that needs to be looked at. I would make sure that you have your water on and that you have your water bill paid and you have your gas on, you have your gas bill paid, because we get to a house and we are doing the inspection. If the water's off, say for instance, if the county stuck a pin in it, we're not going to cut the pin. We're not, no matter what the county, everybody can say it's okay, but it's not okay. We're not going to go around the county. And that means everything on your 4-point just failed. Your water heater, your hot water, your sink, everything just is going to show up as did not work because you don't have water.
Sure. And it sounds like they should be working with their real estate agent with clear communication to guide them through. Are there any inspections that are often overlooked but should be prioritized in this area?
So I'd talk there about insurance inspections first. You have a 4-point inspection. If your house is over 5 years old, if your house is 20 years old, definitely ask your insurance agent, do I need a 4-point? My understanding is 20 years old, you definitely have to have one. Nowadays, when you get much over 5, 8 years old, you're going to have one. Work with your insurance agent, make that phone call before we get there, because almost everybody tries to bundle and save you a little bit of money by being there. But that's a very important thing. There's nothing worse than finding out that you waited to get your 4-point because you're going to save yourself a couple of dollars. And then
Right.
you're a week from closing and your insurance is going to be $8,000 a year because of the 4-point. So that's all something you should think about a little bit. I would definitely get your 4-point. If you look at a 4-point, it is like pass fail for the house. So if we go into a house and we do the 4-point and we find something wrong with the electrical system, something wrong with the plumbing system, that's pass fail. The insurance company is going to say, before we insure the house, you need to fix that. That's now, I'm not an insurance guy. I can't say that's always how everybody works, but 99% of them that I've been involved with, and I do 3 or 4 of these a day, they all want that fixed. If you have a roof that is newer than a 2002, you're always better off to get a wind mitigation. I don't know of anybody that charges so much money in their wind mitigation that it won't offset the deductions you're going to get on your homeowner's insurance with wind mitigation if you have a newer roof. Wind mitigation is a way of reducing your insurance costs because your insurance has to give you deductions for each one of the categories that you are qualified for on a wind mitigation. So although we can't tell you, oh, it's going to be $18, we can tell you are going to get a deduction for this because, it's all kind of legislated in there. So definitely worth your while for those two. Pest inspections are a good idea, especially if you have wood or you're close to where there's going to be termites. I firmly think that as a rule, they're pretty reasonably priced. It's better to find out that you got nothing and at least you have you're starting from square one.
The peace of mind of knowing that too goes
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Do you hear termites chewing on the wood? Yeah. Other inspections, if your house is pre-82, pre-84, I would definitely recommend a sewer scope. Your home inspection may or may not determine if you have cast iron pipe, but they definitely won't be able to tell you without a sewer scope if the cast iron pipe is deteriorated to the point where it needs to be replaced. The way we build drain lines in Florida, especially pre-82, was you have big 3 and 4 inch lines that are sunk into the slab of your home. They're made out of cast iron. Cast iron tends to live about 50 years. So anything that's 50 years old is worth having it scoped. Scoping them is expensive, but it's not as expensive as if you have to have somebody take a concrete saw to your living room. So it's probably one of the least sexy inspections to do. But in my mind, for the times that people call me and say, hey, I got a cracked cast iron pipe you didn't tell me about. And I didn't tell you it was cracked because you didn't get a sewer scope. And I did tell you that the age of your house has a possibility of having cast iron, and we recommend that you have somebody scope it and a plumber evaluate it. Unfortunately, you're on your own with that one because we did say that. And the risk versus the reward is huge, I guess is what I would say with cast iron pipe. So I would be aware of that. I'd also consider that a red flag if somebody says, hey, you got cast iron in the vents or you got cast iron in the attic. Not everybody, when they repipe a house, will change those because they don't deteriorate as much because they're not in constant contact with water. But it still could mean that you have cast iron everywhere. Be aware. Ask some questions, see if it makes sense. I've just been going by luck until I started getting into the home inspection business and learned a little bit more about this pipe. And now it's, man, I would definitely like to have one of these older places, but I would definitely not buy some built in the 70s and not have somebody stick a camera down there just to see.
Yeah, go in knowing what's there and be forewarned.
Knowledge is always going to be power, right? You can make any decision you want. If you have all the knowledge of which way it's going to probably the outcome, it's worth it. But the cast iron ones, it's expensive if it doesn't work out. Those are probably the biggest ones that I would say. The other stuff that you can get, you can have an HVAC guy come out and go through your HVAC system. But by and large, and this is my opinion, it's not really a statement of science, but once they start hitting 10 years, you need to be prepared because you could get 18 or 20 years out of it, but that means you're taking good care of it. You're taking very good care of it. You're having an HVAC guy come out and service it regularly, and you're watching it. If that isn't the case, you better be prepared after 10 years to put another one in. And those are expensive decisions, without a doubt.
Oh, absolutely.
You can get an electrician to come in and do a electrical evaluation of the entire house too. But again, I don't really see that as being the huge ones. I would consider the cast iron pipe to be one that I would look at to definitely get a pest inspection. I think those are worthwhile. But those are the big ones I see.
Cool. Rich, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate you coming out. I learn every time I talk with people who are experts in their field and what they're doing. So the home inspection, vital when you're going into home. As you just said, knowledge is power. Know what you're getting into. Anything else you would say about a home inspection before we sign off?
And this isn't so much a home inspection as it's more of a commercial for realtors. They do a job. They have a function in this process, and they can help you navigate some pretty tricky questions that come up. And that's what they're there for. I may not always say you should have this inspection or that inspection outside, but I really feel strongly that you should always have a realtor. When we work on jobs where people don't have a realtor, it's really difficult for folks because there's a lot of really hard decisions to make and a lot of things that need to be explained to you, not just on the house itself. Finding the house is the first and maybe the easy part, but finding out about the house, finding out how to own the house, if you really own the house, the legalities of owning a house, what kind of expenses you're going to have for the house. I really feel the realtors, the ones that I work with that are very good, are really experts at helping you negotiate the whole process. They keep a lot of balls up in the air for making the process work. So everybody's got their own role in this process. You got insurance people that are helping you, you got title people, you got attorneys, you got your inspection folks. There's a lot of moving parts, and having the right team to help you is huge, my opinion.
Absolutely.
Same thing with the inspection teams. There's a lot of good inspectors out there. I like to think we do a very reputable job and nothing that we have to be ashamed of. There's other people out there that do a very reputable job, nothing to be ashamed of too. And just take the time to make sure that your guy is insured, that he's licensed, that he's got some level of experience. None of us would want to go to the eye doctor that's doing his third LASIK surgery, right? They all have to have number 3, but number 30,000 makes you feel a little more confident. So I would look for somebody that's got some experience and at least a way of vetting themselves so that they can get through the process. So those are the things that just pop into my mind right now. Appreciate you inviting me. It's always fun to talk to people about houses. It's turned into a big part of my life. So it's important.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that wraps up another sunny episode of Jim Sells the Suncoast. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the ins and outs of buying and selling homes here in our beautiful slice of Florida. I hope you found valuable insights and a little bit of inspiration to help you on your real estate adventure. Remember, whether you're looking to buy, sell, or simply soak up the Suncoast lifestyle, I'm here to guide you every step of the way. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so that we can keep shining bright together. Until next time, keep dreaming big and let's turn those dreams into a reality, one home at a time.